Most Bibles have 66 books. Some have 73. But one ancient Christian church has more than 80. And when I first came across that, I paused. Because the question is obvious. Did they add something? Or did the rest of the world leave something behind? So what are these texts? And why have most Christians never heard of them? This isn't a story about books being secretly banned. It's about how different Christian traditions preserved different texts. You've probably seen viral clips claiming that celebrities exposed hidden books of the Bible. Names get thrown around. It sounds convincing. But when you trace those clips back to the original interviews, those statements aren't there. They've been added, edited, or taken out of context. And that matters. Because the truth doesn't need to be manufactured. What we're about to explore has been preserved for centuries. Not hidden, not exposed, simply not carried forward everywhere. For centuries, in the highlands of Ethiopia, a different version of the Bible was preserved. A collection of writings early believers once knew, but that much of the world eventually left behind. To understand how this happened, we have to go back to the beginning. Christianity did not begin as a single, unified structure. In its earliest centuries, it spread across vast regions, from Rome to Alexandria to Antioch and deep into Africa. Different communities formed, different languages were spoken, and different collections of sacred writings began to circulate. Some were letters, some were narratives, some were visions, reflections, interpretations of earlier texts, and they weren't all the same. Over time, leaders in different parts of the world began to recognize which writings would be read publicly as scripture. This process took centuries. It wasn't a single decision. It wasn't a single moment. It was a gradual recognition of what communities believed carried authority. In the Western Church, this eventually became a canon of 73 books. Later, during the Reformation, some traditions reduced that number to 66. But in Ethiopia, something different happened. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church developed in relative isolation from Europe, and because of that, it preserved a broader collection of ancient texts, not hidden, not rediscovered, but continuously used. And one of them describes things you won't find anywhere else in Scripture. Among these texts is one of the most mysterious writings in all of religious history, the Book of Enoch. This isn't just a story. It reads like someone trying to describe something they weren't meant to see. It speaks of beings called watchers, not just observing humanity, but stepping into it, teaching things, not simple knowledge, but something deeper, the shaping of weapons, the secrets of the earth, the manipulation of nature itself, and then something even stranger. It describes their offspring, not symbolic figures, but physical beings, giants. A corrupted generation that, according to the text, disrupted the balance of the world. And then Enoch himself is taken, not metaphorically, but into the heavens, shown structures of reality that feel almost architectural, layers of existence, ordered systems, movements of stars described not just poetically, but with a kind of precision. And then, judgment. These beings are bound, held, waiting. Fragments of this book were found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, which means this wasn't a fringe idea. It was known, studied, taken seriously. And yet, it didn't become part of most biblical canons. Another preserved text is the Book of Jubilees. At first, it feels familiar. It retells Genesis and Exodus. But then, something shifts. Time is no longer just a sequence of events. It's divided, precisely, into cycles, into patterns, almost as if history itself is being measured and repeated. According to this text, events aren't random. They follow a design, a calendar that does not shift, a structure that suggests everything unfolds on a schedule. Even angels are described differently, not distant, but present, observing, recording, as if every moment carries weight beyond what we can see. And then something subtle, but unsettling. It suggests that certain laws, certain practices, existed before they were ever written down, as if humanity was expected to remember something it had forgotten. It's not just a retelling, it feels like a different lens on reality itself, and like Enoch, it slowly disappeared from most traditions. Ethiopia did not forget it. Then there are the books of Meccabian, often confused with Maccabees, but they are not the same. These texts tell entirely different stories, different figures, different conflicts, but what stands out is the tone. These aren't just historical accounts. They feel like confrontations. People standing against power, against corruption, against forces that demand loyalty over truth. But the opposition they face doesn't always feel purely political. There is something deeper, a sense that the struggle is not just external, but spiritual. At times, the language shifts, becomes almost symbolic, as if the enemy represents more than a person, as if the conflict reflects something happening beneath the surface of reality. The lines begin to blur between history and something more abstract, something internal, something universal. And these texts have been preserved, read, and treated as scripture for centuries. So why did these books remain in one place while disappearing from most others? The answer is not as dramatic as many expect. It comes down to language, geography, and time. Many of these texts were written in languages that did not spread widely. Aramaic, Ge'ez, ancient forms of Hebrew. As Christianity expanded through the Roman world, Greek and Latin became dominant. Texts that were not translated or not widely copied simply did not travel as far. At the same time, church leaders were discerning which writings would guide belief, which would be read publicly, which would define teaching. And over time, a more consistent collection emerged in many regions. Not because everything else was erased, but because not everything was carried forward. Ethiopia followed a different path, and because of that, it preserved something the rest of the world slowly moved away from. And that raises a deeper question. What does it mean for a text to be included or not included? Does exclusion mean something was lost? Or does it reflect the need for clarity, for unity, for a shared foundation? For many believers, the canon represents what was recognized as essential. But history reminds us that the early world of faith was broader than we tend to imagine. More voices, more writings, more attempts to understand the same truth. Some were preserved in Ethiopia, others survived only in fragments, and some disappeared entirely. But their existence still matters, because it shows us that faith did not emerge from silence. It emerged from a world alive with thought, debate, and searching. So when we look at the Ethiopian Bible, we're not just looking at extra books. We're looking at a window into how wide the early world of belief once was. A reminder that history is not always about what was hidden. Sometimes it's about what was kept and where. Because somewhere, in a different part of the world, these texts were never forgotten. They were read, copied, preserved, carried forward through generations. Not as secrets, but as scripture. And that changes how we see the story. So the next time you open a Bible, just think about that. Not just what's there, but the path it took to get there, and everything that existed alongside it at the beginning. What do you think? Should all ancient texts have been preserved together? Or was it necessary for the early church to define a smaller canon? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to explore more of these hidden histories and the mysteries surrounding faith, there's a lot more to uncover.